One of the most upsetting things in the whole process is that I started my search for my birth mother. It overlapped with the time that my wife's mother died, and it seemed to be to reinforce what appears to be her belief that I'm so arsey and bloody lucky. That not only had her one mother dying or died, but I'd picked up a spare one along the way. And she never had any indication of, I don't think she ever had any indication of how important it was for me to try and track my genes. Just a question of where the hell do I come from. Yeah, I don't think she understood that when you've been aware every day of your life that you weren't white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, well, quite Protestant actually, in a sort of a way, but that you weren't the same as all the other kids in your school. I had very few children of anything other than a WASP background at the elite school I went to, Geelong College. I always remember later in high school that as some of the Greek or Italian kids had come along and their parents had made enough money and they were giving their child an opportunity to go to an elite school, so in the mid-years of high school suddenly kids had come in, usually several cousins at a time, and they'd obviously look around for who they could pick on rather than be the target themselves, and usually it was me. And there was always the terrific irony of it when they'd call me something like China or Jap or something like that. And people would say, no, China is China Phillips. And there was a guy called China who was Phillips. He wasn't remotely Asian, but that came from the English slang, China plate, mate. And which of course completely confused the offspring of Italian or Greek immigrants. Cockney slang was a long way from their understanding, and they'd insist on calling me China or something like that, and everyone would say, no, that's Mel, don't confuse things, China's China Phillips. And that was, I'd grown up in this community of people, and honestly I don't think kids that you grow up with from kindergarten think as you as being of a particular racial background or anything different. And I honestly don't believe it. They were my friends and mates, but nor did they see a reason to defend me from this ethnic hostility from other minority groups, and that was the funny thing. People would stand by as I sort of got bashed up and everything, and I suppose my defence was to, not being the biggest kid around the place, was to show that I had tenacity, that anyone that took Mel on, that as soon as he got up, whether as beaten or bruised as he may be, he'd come back again, and that the word should get around that if you take on Mel, you're going to have an enemy forever, so it's not worth the risk. It was a big shock going to university with so many goddamn Asians there. When they compete in the first 4 rows with the few Jews to get in the front of the lecture theatre, and that by the time the rest of us have got back from the library, of course, all the 3 editions of the book that we were supposed to get out are long gone. And it was always interesting that probably Malaysian or Hong Kong Chinese that were studying in Australia had this little bit of affinity with me, where I suppose I would explain to them Western things and they'd photocopy an extra set of notes for me when they're in the library for the book that was unobtainable to Westerners because either the Jews or the Asians got them all out and sat on them. I had a really funny experience in Melbourne. Bernice Beng Yong Nguyen, Malaysian girl who was a friend who she shared a house with me for a number of years, not as a girlfriend ever, with other partners and things, and we were mates. and she took me a number of times to Chinese parties, which obviously I was the only non-Chinese there as far as I was concerned, and we'd play mahjong, and of course I didn't have a damn clue how to play it, let alone with serious money on the table. And she was the mathematician who'd sit there behind me saying, no, keep that, throw that, and it wasn't a game. So I'm pleased actually my children can play a competent game of mahjong. It might save them a lot of money one day, I don't know.